President Mahama had a landmark media encounter recently, and it scored points on almost all fronts. In terms of branding, it was spot on. It was well laid out. The room was well laid out. When the camera pans to him and wherever the framing was, it was well done. The logos were on point, visuals looking good. Everything was nice. I did see the presidency logo, which I also really liked. That's also a nice touch. However, of course, you know that I will always look at this from how this impacts the people, how this impacts public trust, and how citizens are being engaged with the content that is being put out. So this is Civic Signal. My name is Malkini Raiberu, and we're going to talk about President Mahama's media encounter. Let's get into it. So it started on time, like I said, lasted 2 hours. It was a long engagement. There were about 31 questions asked, and he stood and answered all the questions across multiple sectors. We're talking education, we're talking health, we're talking economy, we're talking housing, infrastructure, corruption, media, security, agriculture. I like that President Mahama has this firm grip on things. It's like he knows what's happening at each point in time. It also helps that he's good at communicating. So even if he doesn't have a solid answer for you, he knows enough to make you feel like I have this covered. And that was obviously demonstrated in the conversation. And you could see tweets on the timeline on Twitter. I'm never calling it X, I'm sorry. On Twitter, and people talking about how he had a good grip over a lot of things and how impressive it was. And for me, that scores massive points when it comes to public trust, because like I said, we have in recent times come from a place where there is heavy mistrust in the government and the administration to do whatever it is that they say they are doing, to follow through, etc. And we haven't had this kind of media engagement in quite a while. I think there was a point where members of the media were actively asking the former president when he was going to engage the press, what was happening, why he was speaking to people outside, instead of speaking to us as a people like he did during COVID. It almost seemed as though he had switched off the opportunity for us to engage him as a people by not having those media encounters. So this was refreshing. I noticed that so many people logged on. It didn't matter where, whether it was Facebook, Twitter, on YouTube, everyone was plugged in trying to listen because one, this was his first engagement, and two, it was a way of understanding what he was doing across the multiple sectors. Because let's face it, yes, it's been only 8 months, but there's a reason why he was voted into power with that kind of gap. There's a lot of expectation on him and his ability to deliver. So a lot of people wanted to hear what he had to say, what had been done, because like I said in my previous video, not everyone will watch the accountability series press engagement. So people will not know what is happening in each of those sectors. And this was an opportunity to hear what the president's assessment of his administration thus far was and what the steps forward were. So on that score, he scored 100%. And I also thought it was a very nice touch for them to have the journalists across the country join. I thought that was fantastic. It gave the sense of inclusion. This is not just about the people who are in the room. And I'd love to see them employ this when they do go on these thank you tours, engagement tours, listening tours, all those things. When they go to these regions, it will be a good way for them to also engage the press in those places. Because let's face it, Accra is in Ghana. So there are a lot of things that they may be privy to that may not be top of mind for whoever is doing the briefings here in Accra, or for whoever is picked to answer the question. Because if you are picked to answer a question, you may have 10 questions, but you only have allocation for one. And as we can see, some people will give you a really long preamble, which shortens the amount of time that other journalists have to speak. So it may not be everything that will be touched, but that might be something to consider when they do go on these press tours, to have these engagements and have people interact with them, to have the people who are telling the stories in those regions, give them the first-hand experience of what is happening. Yeah, so I was thinking about that. I also had a few concerns, and we'll get into those. Obviously, my main issue with the presidency account is that it's not doing enough heavy lifting. That's the official account of the office of the president. I was expecting some live tweets, even if there wasn't live tweeting, that they would include excerpts of the things that he was saying as he was saying them, some quote cards. I did see some members or some employees at the presidency tweeting alongside, but like I keep saying, for posterity, for having that archive, for having that one source of active storytelling about your administration, it's always good to have one place where things are going out from, rather than from individual accounts that are for human beings and do not at all times represent the state. I still haven't seen that come through, and I thought that was one low-hanging fruit that could have also made this fantastic. I was also a little concerned to hear about the West African deportees for the first time in this press briefing. It almost seemed as though we were finding out because the question was posed to the president, which again, see, when you have been in an abusive relationship before and your boyfriend raises his voice even once, you instantly think, oh, like, this feels like it's happening again. So when we have had a situation where no one is addressing us, no one is telling us what's happening, and you suddenly have things that you find out only because someone asked a question, you begin to wonder, what else don't I know? What else is being talked about? Is there anything? Is this going to be like business as usual? Those are some valid concerns. So I would say there's no reason why we should only now see press rollouts after the question was posed. It makes me wonder what would have happened if this question hadn't been asked. So that's something to think about. But then we come to my main issue for the press encounter, Galamsey. Yes, I've been tweeting about Galamsey since President Mahama came into power. I've been saying, I'm waiting to see what you're doing. President Mahama, what are you doing? President Mahama, what are you doing? So I was eager to hear what he had to say about Galamsey in this press encounter. And I've seen the comments on the timeline on Twitter. I've seen some feedback on Facebook. I've seen a few things on Instagram as well and on TikTok. And I find that he missed the opportunity to assure us that he had a firm grip on what was happening and that we could trust his actions going forward. Why am I saying this? Because a big part of why people rallied around him was because of how the previous administration handled Galamsey and the protest against Galamsey. That insensitivity, that it almost seemed like numbness to our complaints was what made us think, okay, then we're not going to give you another opportunity to continue to do this. So it obviously puts a certain weight on the president to come and tell us how he intends to do this. I thought that his remarks at the beginning should have heavily featured what they are actively doing on Galamsey. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what we've done so far. This is what we intend to do going forward. In the next few months, by X dates, we are hoping to have achieved this and that within beyond which we would move to a state of emergency if necessary. That tells us, like he does with all the other sectors, that I know what I'm doing. We didn't get that sense. It almost seemed, first of all, the question was missed, it came back, and then the response wasn't as assertive as it was for other responses. For instance, his response on people tweeting ethnocentric, tribalistic content, he was firm, decisive. Like, I am the commander of the commander-in-chief of the army, of the armed forces, and like, I have weight, I have authority. It came through. even if it was subtle, it came through. It didn't come through with Galamsey, which makes the TL react timeline. I apologize if you don't know what TL means, which makes us react and think, what's happening here? Because really, what's happening here? I hear you say, yes, excavators have been seized, these things have been taken, this has been moved. But there are still people on TikTok talking about how, yeah, they are going to do this and no one can stop them. If you come at night, we'll come in the day. And if you come and we will even shoot you. Why are people having their effrontery, their courage, their... I'm struggling to find words to describe it. To go on the internet and threaten law enforcement agents who are coming to stop them from illegal mining. Why? Why is that happening? And why is that not something we are actively addressing? Because you see, Galamsey isn't just Galamsey for me. And I find that it's a test of public trust for this administration. Because Galamsey is one thing, but it impacts the quality of our water, the quality of our food, our security, because now we have people, and yesterday I saw tweets about this. I saw people talking about how they have weapons, and a lot of them are now addicted to opioids and all sorts of drugs to be able to have the resilience to continue working. So we're dealing with that on one side. Then the fact that they have weapons and are now threatening us on the internet also poses a risk in terms of security. What's happening to the fact that there are multiple people having kidney-related diseases? What's happening to the fact that there are trace metals found in our foodstuffs? We are already in a crisis situation. And I think that this approach of looking at it with kid gloves, we are taking it one day at a time, is not giving us the assurance that we want. And these are early days. I know that these are early days. But someone said this recently. If December is going to be late, you know it's from September. So it may be early days, but if you are doing something now, it will give us the confidence that, December is going to be to work out well. And we don't have that. We don't have any assurance that this menace is under control in any way. The water is getting more polluted. It's affecting us in terms of quality of water. Are we going to wait until we're importing water before we realize this is something we need to take handle more aggressively than we've done in previous times? Are we waiting for there to be an influx of GoFundMe accounts to raise funds for people who have cancer, or people who have kidney disease, or people whose legs have to be amputated because of this? Are we waiting for our children to now we have a large number of people who are deformed, or people who have all sorts of diseases because of being exposed to these metals? Is that the point at which we will decide that this is something we need to deal with aggressively? We talk about tourism. Ghana is a country that should be cashing in on tourism. Where are they going to go to? As they are driving from one place to the other, the security of people coming out with their guns and under the influence of drugs, and clearly having the mentality of we will do what we want. That's a security risk to anyone who's coming into this country. There are no nice things to see as they are driving by. We see muddy water. We see pits full of water and mud. Is that what's going to attract the foreigners into our country? And I hear people say that there are people whose livelihood, there are about 4 million people whose livelihood would be impacted by this. How many of us are in Ghana? All of us are going to be impacted by this. So 4 million over the rest of us, is that what it is? Because at this point, if this continues, the message it's sending to us is each of us has to figure out our own lives. And I don't think that that's what the president wants to communicate. I don't think that that's what he wants to bring across. Like I've said in previous videos, this is his legacy term. So I imagine that he wants to leave a certain kind of legacy because of how his last term ended. I don't see that effort. And I know that there's a lot of effort being done in multiple places, but if Galamsey isn't handled the way it should, I fear that it would color our impressions and our memories of that legacy term. So, Mr. President, fantastic press encounter, great engagement with the people. You did that boost of confidence, telling us, I know what I'm doing, except in the area of Galamsey. And for people who are going to come into the comment section to accuse me of being overly critical, there's no other Ghana we are going to move to unless you have another Ghana that you are going to relocate to when this is over. There's no other Ghana. So we are all going to be in this Ghana. And that's why it's important for us to keep talking. It's important for us to keep raising these issues so that people are aware of what to deal with. Because when the water crisis happens, when the food crisis happens, when our health system is breaking under the pressure of so many people with cancer, with kidney disease, with amputations, with deformities, when the security problems happen, there's nowhere else we're going to. This is our motherland. So unfortunately, we're going to have to keep talking. And I would really love for us to get to the point where we can separate our political allegiances from what is happening to a nation that impacts all of us. I would really love for us to get there because Ghana must work. Ghana must do well. Anyway, I look forward to multiple other press encounters in future, and hopefully this will be a good way again for the president to assure us that he is in control of what is happening in the country. After everything that has been said, there's obviously the part where we are looking to see how the things that have been said will be executed. So that's also another test in public trust. As always, this has been Civic Signal. If you found this useful, watch out for the next episode. Thank you and see you in the next one. Bye.